Shalom, Israel. Giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash. Fairly quick video giving all praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakadash, Barakathai. Yahweh, Barakathai Yahushai. Double honors to the apostle, elder bishops, great millstone. Much salutation to the brothers teaching word for the hopeful elect, soon to be elect, most high will to the hopeful extended elect, shalom, blessings. Men, women, and children. And I'm going to call this the development of Stockholm syndrome, and my 2 cents or my perspective, which, I'll get some scriptures. And I think it starts with this, basically, caring for so-called white people's children, and they basically forced them into the being nursed by our women. Basically that was a psychological war game that they won in that time, and even the effects of it show today. And it made me think. This is one movie. I might have, when I find it, I'll bring it up, or I'll put it in the comment section. But I just saw a little clip of it. Of what's her name? Man, she played her name slips my mind already. She played. She stars in. She played in Fences with Denzel. She starred in How to Get Away with Murder. It's just one of those things where it goes right out your mind. Viola Davis. And she played a part where she was a caretaker for this so-called white woman or family, but engaging more in the relationship with the woman of the family, and then her child being left with Viola Davis to as being cared for, to be cared for. So she played an in-house caregiver, whatever. So and then she would see sometimes the child interacting with a mother, and a mother spanking her behind, and for small reasons, which would seem small. Sometimes, talking to a black person or something, and then she a woman in the, Viola Davis, the character, they'll go and hug the woman, hug the child. And the woman goes off to a vacation, or go to a picnic, an outing, or whatever, and the child is left with, in this case, a slave woman, and she develops a relationship with her over time, and she, she sees the little girl getting treated unfairly at any time by her mother or family. She embraces the child more. They have even pictures of the black women nursing the white children. So she played a second mother, and really kind of became a main mother. Because you imagine the conversations as the child grew up that they would have without the mother being there. And they often depicted these roles in sitcoms that came out, 80s, 90s, such as Give Me a Break, such as, what's that other one? Give Me a Break was one of the main ones. You had, I think, beginning characters in movies or shows with Mahalia Jackson, Hattie McDaniel, and they were always kind of like that big woman and that wasn't really a false depiction because the the reason why they got kind of big because they were in-house women and they would cook. So of course, they would be bigger than the women that were out there in the field. But and you had Jake male children taking pictures with the young Edomite children. Edomites are so-called white people that call themselves white but really red. That's Jake on the left. He's a male child, and he's with this. So, as much as hatred that they show against us and have for us, they have this crazy psychological complex about embracing us at the same time, having us, a lot of our people in-house at the same time to take care of their own children and to nurse their children. But it makes sense. It said that's biblical too, because they're going to become our nurses and they're going to become our workers and slaves and servants. Um, but, I wanted to make a point too with this. And let me get this scripture right quick. David said, Psalms 139-21, do not I hate them, O Lord, that hate thee? Am not I grieved with those that rise up against thee? I hate them with a perfect hatred. I count them my enemies. And it says, never trust thine enemy. So, this is definitely a psychological um, subject matter. People being in a delusional state. And I want to set an example of, like I said, while caring for this child and developing a relationship over time, especially being older when the little girl is like, they slaves live like to be 70, 80, 90 years old sometimes. And, the daughter has well grown up right under the black woman's wing or care for, and she's like, from a baby to her teenager years, even to her grown adult years, into her 40s, 50s. So you have that connection right there, but it starts off, so to speak, like it's innocent, to where, like I said, when she sees a child abused any kind of way, or she relates to that pain because that's how they treat her. So, and they treat us like boys, even if you grow up to be a young man, they'll still call you boy. You could be a full-grown man, full-grown beard, and they say boy, which is pretty much a derogatory term to call another man of the same equal men. And we're really not equal, but you know what I'm talking about. According to like a man and being a man, period, growing into being a man. So, when you belittled and you looked over and you're in pain, and then you see somebody else that's young and little on the outside, such as a little boy, a little girl that's being mistreated, or even just, whipped or, overlooked sometimes by their parents, you kind of take a liking to that, to see something similar to where you're able to engage in wanting to, be friend by those means. So then you develop an even deeper relationship. You start telling her, secrets and sharing things with her that you wouldn't even with your own family. You become tight in a tight-knit relationship, so to speak. A lot of times when they grow up and the daughter's looking like, yeah, I got to go back with my family. You remember, you're just a slave. Can I come with you? Can I come to the north with you, whatever? No, you're just a slave. Sorry. So that, that and that comes with feelings of emotional, and like I said, I'm using the black woman as an example, being in that, being in this condition and stuff, slavery, you know, to where, and that's how she would raise her son. Um, but really, the sons got taken away from them a lot of times, so they really never bonded with their son, on certain levels. Um, the bond that they had with these so-called white children exceeded their bond with their own children, because their own children was like, the children be in the field at an early age. So that was all divide and conquer. That was all psychological warfare against us. And I get that, and a lot of our people don't understand. A lot of our women today don't understand. Our people today, and especially black women today, don't understand. I mean, that's one of the most detrimental, destructive ways to destroy a family is to separate them and break the bond between them. So, when our people say, well, yeah, let's go out and vote and let's do this and, caring for the Edomites and they should have equal rights too and feeling sorry for them, it goes back to this. And I actually looked up Homestuck syndrome. Let me see. Well, I always say it backwards. Stockholm syndrome, a psychological response where hostages or abuse victims develop sympathy for their captors, and they often, now, even if she got kind of like a little animosity against the mother and not the daughter, because she feels like kind of like how the daughter feels. Like I said, because that's even a psychological error right there. That because she's only a child and she cries and she doesn't know what to do, and it kind of reminds her of herself. This kind of reminds the slave of herself, and how she's treated by the so-called white people of the elder age, of the the people, the ones that really, push the authority out there and navigate, these rules and regulations against her and her people, which is so-called black people. So she might be like, well, damn, this child, she grows up with the child, like I said, or, child under her wing, so to speak, most of the time, breastfed her, in-house nurse for she scuffed her knee or ankle, and she's not worried about the mother. She becomes the mother to that baby. She doesn't call her mother. She's like, oh, because she's used to being a nurse and a caregiver. So, and she might have a little animosity against the mother because of what she's seeing, the mistreatment that she shows, against a daughter. But guess what? This young child is going to grow up to be a mother of the same way, so to speak. Or, sometimes they might develop a liking for Negroes, but they still have that mentality of an Edomite. Might be a little bit more lenient or whatever, but they still hold those same values amongst their own people. So she might marry a Jake, whatever, when she grows up, Edomite child. But anyway, this is just an instance, in a moment of time, because of these, small, like I said, like I'm saying, small moments in time, to where, the black man wasn't a part of this. So he probably it probably wouldn't affect him that much. He's more on the rebellious side. So that's the division between the black man, so-called black man, and so-called black woman. We say so-called because they're really the Jews of the Bible. They're not really black, but different shades of brown. Um, so you'll have. Let me read a little bit more of the Stockholm syndrome. Um, Homesickness, emotional distress from being away from home. Um, Hoarding disorder, and I'm pretty sure that word home, HOLM, relates to home actually. Hoarding disorder, difficulty discarding possessions. Stock syndrome, rare informal business slang related to market stress. But let's focus on a little bit of that homesickness. So you develop a liking to a home that you're in, and it's the slave master's home, so called, because they're really not meant to be masters. But you develop a liking, and then you somebody that family that you're a caretaker for. You develop a relationship with their daughter, their son, whatever, son or daughter, and then they come to a point where they sell you or want to sell you, and then that person, that woman, and that slave is crying their eyes out because they develop memory, they develop relationship with their family, the daughters, and the family might need the money. Like, oh, well, we don't know what to do. We're in debt. We have to sell you, and but we'll come to visit you every now. But in the place that she gets sold to, the family she gets sold to, is much worse than that one. So she's really developing. She's, and then she gets sent off. She's comparing the two, and she'd be like, "Well, damn, man, I'm trying to go back home, to this other, where she gets treated a little bit better, but she still get called a nigger. She still get looked down at. She still gotta care, be the caretaker of the house. They still get into it. She still get sent to the field sometimes when they get tired of her. But it's much better. She feels it's much better than the other family, which it could be the case. But that's what makes her like at least one better than the other. Jake got something called choose the lesser evil. But those dynamics shouldn't even play a part in the mind of our people. Is if they're talking about true freedom, they're talking about true liberty, you know, and sometimes the bond becomes unbreakable between the slave master and, I mean, the nurse, the so-called the slave nurse, and the child of the slave master. They even be friends in their older age. Like I said, she could be 90, and then the little boy grows up to be, usually I guess a little girl, using it for example, grows up and she's like 40, 50, and she's, and she's still, the slave woman is still coming, barely walking, and I remember when I used to take care of you and all the things, and the child cries because, oh, you told me so much and you taught me so much, and she still gotta, when the family comes around, she still gotta be like, yeah, well, what were you doing? What y'all discussing? Well, nothing, ma, nothing, mother, her mother's old like her, but those traditions kept in so-called white people's home. But, and my point with this too, just because you develop a relationship and a genuine relationship, which even your enemy, as a child, growing up under you and taking your advice and developing a liking to you, a relationship with you, doesn't change the fact that they come from a family of so-called slave masters and murderers, and ones that put you back into the field, even to this day, put you back into the ghetto. So that's what they do, and that's what they do to Jake. They give Jake a, so to speak, false narrative of the better and the worse. And Jake, of course, he's gonna go with the better. So if he strive for the better home, no matter who's in that household, and it's better than the household that he's living in or did live in, but the new household is filled with slave masters that mistreat you from time to time, call you out of name from time to time, you be like, well, at least it's better than that other place. And that's just what's happening in America. You know, they've been here so long, and they didn't had ups and downs dealing with their oppressor. You know, all through the civil rights movement era. You know, and they say, well, you know, we got jobs now, we got housing now, we got projects, but at least we're not getting our ass whooped. At least we're not getting our back split open. At least we're not bleeding in the cotton fields. So, you know, and they'll continue to live like that for the rest of their lives. And even getting into voting and getting into trying to build a better America along with the American political world, politicians and leaders, and the same, the same potential that's given. I mean that in the same what do you call it, man? These same doors that's open for so-called white people today to be rich, to be in these high-seated places, presidents and lawyers and police officers and the highest of it, even on elite status, is the same ambition and the same, you know, drive that these young children grow up to have and to accomplish that was once nursed by these so-called black women. So you wonder why so-called black women got more of a liking to these worldly things, even people, when it comes to politicians and mayors, and when they get into voting and education and church. You know, it's the development of what has started with this kind of caretaking and nursing, and it developed into what they call Stockholm syndrome today. And in a lot of those cases, still, that bond is unbreakable between the slave and the slave master. And like I said, it doesn't usually have to be the actual adult slave master. It could be the children, because these children are still their masters. Their child gets to be like 5 years old, 6 years old, and they be able to talk and express themselves well and know things, observe things, and they'll tell on the slave, and the slave will either get their ass whooped or they'll get hung or something. So the children still got authority over the adult in this case of slavery. Well, that's going to be in the kingdom with us. Our children are going to be over them. He that leadeth in slavery shall go into slavery. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. This is a patience and the faith of the saints. And to you devils, you elites, you so-called slave masters, you Edomite that's quick to say nigger or quick to look down on our people, some's coming for you. And just remember what it says in the scriptures. And remember, you jakes that say this is a so-called white man's book. Do your damn research. It says, and this is even in the New Testament. It says, Ephesians 6:9, and ye masters, do the same things unto them, forbearing, threatening. Well, it says servants. Let's start at 5. It says servants. It says servants, be obedient, Ephesians 6:5, to them that are your masters according to the flesh, with fear and trembling and singleness of your heart, as unto Yahweh Shai. You'd be like, well, we got them right there. That's what they'll say. Keep reading the Bible, not with eye service as men pleasers, but as the servants of Yahweh Shai, doing the will of the Most High from the heart. Let's keep reading. With good will, doing service as to the Lord and not to men. Good will. Now, they did do a slave Bible. They try to act like they were Christians. We know that. Knowing that whatsoever good thing that any man doeth, the same shall he receive of the Lord, whether he be bond or free. As ye masters, do the same things unto them, forbearing, threatening, knowing that your master also in heaven, neither is there respect of persons with him. So he'll destroy your ass, even if you're considered a master. You're considered, you have a household, a family. He doesn't care who you are. And even with Jake and his own people. That's why Solomon said, I don't have bondmen and bondwomen of my people. I have they servants. They're not bondmen and bondwomen. That's for the heathen. I'll have them as my bondmen and bondwomen, because there's nothing wrong with servitude. And Jake, let's say Jake got, they worked for some higher up Jakes that were rich, and the higher up Jakes paid Jake for their services, and they paid them in gold, and they paid them in gold where they'll have plenty for them and their family, that they're able to take care of, them, their whole family, and their own family and another family. They have plenty of food, fields, plenty of crops, plenty of resources, because they're getting paid for their services. Jake wouldn't have a problem with that. But maybe Jake would have now. Jake has become greedy like the so-called white man. You could pay him in gold and he'll ask for more gold and he'll rob you. Oh man. That's how stupid they could be getting paid good, but you see how much gold he got in his house? Let's just rob him. Most High gonna destroy nigger-minded. And then when they go to jail and in prison, they be crying their eyes out. I hope Most High send you send you into judgment. The hell with dying. Stay here on earth and suffer, man. For ninjas like that, ninjettes like that. But that's it, man. So that's kind of like, just giving my 2 cents on, how, I did get the definition of it and showed you some pictures, how that could easily develop into Stockholm syndrome. And that's why people are so bent out of shape now, trusting the enemy. Anyway, to the next video, shalom.